Hi you guys, this is Jamie with Whatever's Clever Boutique, and today we're going to make this super cute mermaid inspired tumbler. My daughter claimed this one immediately, but it turned out so cute. I'll have everything that I use listed and linked in the description box below, as well as some coupon codes. So I'm going to start out with a 16-ounce plump from the Tipsy Magnolia. I'm going to go ahead and apply my foil today using cat scratch tape. And I'll go ahead and link that below. I know there's many different types you can use. The one I got was just off of Amazon, but I'm gonna go ahead and just line that up with the tumbler, just kind of like we do with vinyl. So I'm gonna go ahead and just trim it so that it fits the tumbler perfectly. Once we get that all trimmed up, we're actually going to go ahead and apply this to a white sheet of vinyl. For me, that's just easier to apply it onto the tumbler. It's much easier to work with this way. So I apply it to the white vinyl, and then I go ahead and take my foil and I'm going to trim that where I want the foil to be. I really wanted this little purple spot at the bottom here because my colors were going to be blue, green, purple. So I went ahead and just cut that foil out to fit that cat scratch paper. Sorry, that is such a tongue twister. But once we get that foil trimmed, I'm just going to remove that backing of the paper and apply our foil. Now, I did a terrible job. I dropped the foil and you can see my carnage here, but we're gonna go ahead and work with it and we're gonna apply it anyway. And then once we get that applied mostly to our liking, we're gonna go ahead and just fill in those little spots that I messed up there at the beginning. But ultimately, we didn't need super clean coverage for this anyway because there's going to be alcohol ink and stuff over top of it. This is just going to be our base, so I wasn't too concerned. Otherwise, I probably would have redone it because it bugs me that it's different colors going in the spots that we're filling. But again, we aren't going to see that. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim that vinyl. And this is just so much easier applying the foil to the tumbler this way, in my opinion. Everyone's different, but for me, this is the easiest way. And because the backing of the tumbler is silver, I went ahead and applied that cat scratch paper to the white vinyl so we had a white background. And again, it's totally personal preference. Apply your foil however you would like. We're going to go ahead and trim off that excess, and then we're going to take our little cup edging tool and we're going to trim off that bottom and top. Now, once that's all trimmed, we're going to go ahead and put our tumbler on our turner. Now, you can use any alcohol inks you would like here. No need to buy any specific ones. I went with just kind of those mermaid vibe colors with the blue, turquoise, and purple. But again, you can use whatever colors you would like here. Then we're also going to use our Alumilite white epoxy dye. Now I'm just going to put a base coat of epoxy on here. Now we don't want it too thin because we want our alcohol inks to move. So I'm going to put a pretty hefty coat of epoxy on here. This is a 16-ounce tumbler. I want to say I used probably about 25-ish ounces of epoxy on our base layer. Then in our leftover epoxy, we're going to put a drop or two of our Alumilite white epoxy dye in there, and that's going to help us swirl our inks around. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take my alcohol inks and I'm just going to put them on the tumbler. And unlike other alcohol ink projects I've done, we're actually going to apply these not sporadically. We're going to lay the inks where we want the clusters to go. So I'm going to lay those first purple inks, and then I'm going to take my colors that follow and I'm going to layer them right next to those first ink drops. I want some of my backing to show when we're done with this tumbler, so that's why I'm keeping our clumps of ink closely together. Now that we have all of our inks laid, I'm going to go ahead and take my Alumilite epoxy dye, epoxy, if you will, and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over our clusters, trying to avoid those empty spots as we want that backing to show. So I'm just laying these right over top of the ink clusters themselves. Then we're going to go ahead and heat up that tumbler so we can get our inks to move. And then we're just going to manipulate the tumbler until I like the way the ink swirls are looking. Now that we have it all swirled to our liking, we're going to go ahead and let that coat of epoxy cure, and we're going to make our little bubbles. I'm going to use Luster, Thrive, Meringue, and Macaroon, all from KSRESIN, and we're just going to take some little medicine cups here. We're going to put a little bit of UV resin into each one of those, along with some of each of the glitters. To make my bubbles, it's literally as simple as just taking a drop of your glittered resin and putting it onto the parchment paper that we have laid down. And you can do these as big or as small as you would like. I just did an assortment of sizes in each of our glittered resins. And then I went ahead and just cured them with my UV light, and we were done. Now that our cute little bubbles are done, we're going to go ahead and work on our mermaid handle. Now all I'm doing is taking a drop of hot glue here just to apply this to a cup chuck so that I can easily work with it without messing up our tumbler. But I'm just going to kind of ombre these two paints together. I have a bright purple and a teal, and I'm just going to ombre again the best I can with paint. It's not the super easiest thing to do, but we're going to glitter over it so you won't see too terribly much of the paint itself. This is just acting as our base coat. And once our paint is all dry, we're going to go ahead and take any sort of tack it or wicked stick it or anything like that, and you're going to go ahead and apply that all over the handle and let it dry. Once it's all dry, we're going to take Lotus from Simply Sarah's Customs, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on the handle and then take my finger and burnish it right into that handle itself to give us a super pretty, almost like pearlescent looking handle. Don't mind my hot glue coming undone from the little cup chuck, but that's here nor there. There's nothing like making a tumbler and having it all go perfectly smooth. But here's why we base painted that handle, because you can kind of see that you can see the color underneath it, but it's not super prominent, and that's why I wasn't too concerned about the paint ombre. But you definitely want a base coat of paint here because your color is going to show through. Now we're going to go ahead and apply that handle to our tumbler. And with this one, because the tumbler is small, you want to be sure that those mermaid tail points aren't going to touch the ground before your tumbler bottom touches the ground. Otherwise, that would cause all sorts of problems. But I just take a drop of UV resin and go ahead and apply that directly to the tumbler and let it cure with our UV light. I went ahead and let it cure. Actually ended up moving it outside for a good 15-20 minutes to make sure it wasn't going to budge, but just the light works fine as well. Once that's all cured, I'm going to go ahead and take my handle itself, and we're just going to put a coat of our UV resin onto the handle just to seal in all of that pretty mica so it doesn't transfer to our tumbler when we go to apply our next coat of epoxy. I got this cute SVG, Be a Mermaid in a Sea of Fish off of Etsy. And I just went ahead and chose colors that matched my tumbler. So our back layer is white, and then I have a purple middle layer, and then I have a holographic vinyl that's going to be for our fin and our water, and then the pearl teal from, all of these are from Tech Rat Craft, I should say, other than the white, because I went ahead and had to grab some from the craft store because I ran out of my white Tech Rat Craft. You guys know these are my go-to vinyls, so to have to work with something other than Tech Rat Craft is a challenge. And I went ahead and just layered that all together and then applied it to my tumbler. To apply this decal, it is large, so I went ahead and did the hinge method. So I removed that backing and then pulled it over to the side to expose a little bit of that transfer tape, and then went ahead and positioned it onto my tumbler so that it was to my liking. And then I just peeled up the rest of that backing and laid it directly down onto the tumbler. Now's the time we're going to go ahead and apply our cute little bubbles. So to do this, it's super easy, kind of like leopard print is almost what it reminded me of, but I just laid them in little clusters, and I went ahead and just used some UV resin and then placed the UV resin glitter dots right on top of that, and then went ahead and cured it. And once we get all of our bubbles laid to our liking, we're going to go ahead and go in with our final 2 coats of epoxy. And I kind of went rogue, and I ended up adding these cute little bubbles from B&B Glitter into our first final coat. They're just little circles that added a different element to the tumbler. But sorry I didn't video that. Again, it was totally spur of the moment. I wasn't recording, but as you can see, they added a nice little touch. But this is how our tumbler turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will see you guys again here soon.